Hi, I'm Jody Daly, and this is Let's Talk, where consumers like us talk about the things that matter. Well, last Thanksgiving, my oldest aunt and I sat down and did our family tree, and we could only go back 2 generations. Well, after that, I saw why genealogy has become a billion-dollar industry, and we're going to talk about that and a lot more when we come back.
Want to make your mealtime a little more enjoyable? Check out the ready-to-heat, ready-to-serve meals and side dishes offered at your favorite supermarket. Whether it's chilled, or fresh, or frozen, you can taste the cuisines of the world. And if you buy the supermarket store brands, you can be sure of quality and freshness at reasonable prices. Give them a try and add something special to mealtime.
Tracing family history is one of America's best pastimes, and thanks to innovation, technology, and a lot of research opportunities, you can delve into the past like never before. But there is a big but. With all of that info out there, including your DNA, what are you getting and what are you giving? Josh Taylor is president of the New York Genealogical and Biographical Society and host of the Genealogy Roadshow, and we love your show. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Rod, you used one of the most popular online companies to find your roots and even had your DNA tested. I'm looking forward to hearing about that. And Bob Goldberg is a medical consumer advocate. Now, you're going to give us a little bit of insight into what we should be considering before we give our DNA out. So thank you all for coming. I'm going to start with you, Josh. Let me ask you, a billion-dollar industry, why has finding our roots become so important?
Well, it's an experience that everyone can have, right? Everyone wants to connect back at some point in their lives, I think, to a person, to an event, and it's a great
I just want to be royalty. That's
well,
all.
You might be. I mean,
Couldn't
there's millions
get
of
that
people
far
that are.
But what have you found? I mean, what do people want to know?
A lot of it is longing for a connection. You know, it could be a historical event, it could be a person, or even a moment sort of that they're experiencing now, like a loss in the family, where they're looking backwards.
Now, how do you think technology has changed the way people are able to find stuff? Like you were telling me when we were talking earlier that, you know, you go through deeds and you go through paper, and paper seems so antiquated.
It does, but it's my world, right? So genealogists used to only be able to use paper, and the reason that it's accessible now is that all the records have been digitized, or a lot of the records have been digitized. And so it requires a name and sort of the curiosity and the search button to at least get started.
Now, you were also telling me that you help people when they get to sort of like the roadblock. How do you do that?
So we use the same resources that everyone else has available to them. We just have the training and the understanding of how to put the pieces together. So a lot of it is in analyzing evidence and realizing that, well, those 4 people that look like they're different people are actually exactly the same person in the record.
That must be really weird for some people to find those kinds of things out.
It is. I mean, we uncover mysteries all the time. You know, you never should venture into genealogy if you're going to be frightened by what you might find.
Well, speaking of that, is there anything really surprising that maybe you found on Genealogy Roadshow or in your research that you went, oh?
You know, on Genealogy Roadshow, we start with a question and then we try and answer that question. And very often we find relatives that are quite close in sort of relationship with someone, but physically they haven't seen each other in years or ever.
Yeah.
And sometimes they have the missing photograph or the missing piece.
And Rod, that kind of happened to you. You went on that little genealogical journey. How did you start looking for your past?
Well, as a child, I was always interested in this. And my grandfather on my dad's side would talk about Norway and the city he was from.
Sure.
It was a very old city. One of the oldest ships was found in that city, Viking ships. And my other grandparents that lived locally, real close to me, would tell me about how they had a Dutch background, and that that would go back all the way to the 1600s.
Wow.
Coming over from Holland and being here in New Amsterdam and moving into Jersey.
So what was the first step that you took trying to find those roots? I mean, you had the interest, you had the grandparents. Did you start writing things down? Did you go online? What did you do?
Yeah, so I did have some data that they actually handed down to me. And then I went...
Well, when you say data, are you talking letters? Are you talking...
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, letters, pictures, and actually family trees that were handed down. So then what I did was I joined a genealogical website and started to actually plug in those names of people that I knew, and I was able to go back pretty far on both sides.
How far?
In Norway, the family, I was able to get down to the 1100s.
Wow.
Yeah, and then
Are you royalty? I want to meet royalty in
No.
genealogical terms somehow.
No, it's funny. I think of the Gokstad, that Viking ship, for example.
Sure.
Obviously, someone who was buried in that ship was royalty. When I look at that and I think about that individual, when I made that trip, I thought it was very personal. I thought that maybe I might not be related to him per se, but I bet some of the people that might have built that burial mound and basically put that ship in there, maybe they were related.
Yeah, it's kind of neat to think about that. When you got that far back, you got that far back without giving out your DNA, right?
Yes, at that point. I
So
did,
it was
yep.
research only.
Yes.
What made you say, I'm going to, swab and send it off?
I was curious to see actually what I might not know. So I knew that I had a Scandinavian background. I knew that I had an English and a Dutch background. I was curious what else could there be out there.
Did it give you a lot more information?
Yeah, the site that I used did give me more information. I found out that I am a small portion Iberian Peninsula, which even at this point, I don't really know exactly how that comes in. I believe it might be coming in through my father's mother's side.
But let me ask you this. Were you concerned at all that when you found that out through giving your DNA away, that maybe you were giving your DNA, were you concerned about that at all?
I'm not a worrier in general, so it didn't really bother me. And my feeling is, I work with healthcare. There are regulations that they have to follow to protect people's personal information. And so long as these companies are following regulations as well, I felt relatively comfortable to do it.
Well, we're going to talk to Bob when we come back about that, and we're going to hear from our consumer advocate on what we should be considering before we decide to commit to DNA testing to learn about our family tree. Don't go away.
Supermarkets can get pretty confusing nowadays. So many aisles, so many products. How can you save time and money when you shop? Get into the habit of buying your store's store brands. You get the same quality as national brands and save at the cash register. No apps, no coupons, just money in your pocket. Give them a try and smile your way through the supermarket.
Welcome back. For those of you who are just joining us, we are talking about family trees and finding your family history. Now, I just want to ask you, Josh, really quickly. Out of the people that you're working with at the Genealogical Society, Biographical and Genealogical Society, how many of those people are now searching through looking for DNA?
80%.
80% are now using their DNA.
Yep.
Now, Bob, I'm going to go to you because you are our medical advocate and expert. When it comes to this kind of thing, it's a little scary for some people, but how do you feel about giving out your DNA?
Well, I'm not a worrier either.
I'm the only worrier here.
But in point of fact, the fact that it's $1 billion a year industry suggests that there's much more value in the DNA that you're giving than just the reports that you're getting.
Define that. What do you mean, the reports that you're getting?
So-
What are you giving and what are you getting back?
So if you get a DNA report, you can get from several companies will give you your genetic lineage, like going all the way back to the 11th century.
Did you get that? Did you get your lineage or a pie chart?
I got a pie chart.
You got a pie chart?
Okay.
Okay, so in some cases it's a lineage, the more sophisticated it's a lineage. Most get a pie chart, but there's more information that your DNA carries, including genetic predisposition to diseases, certain types of lineage possibilities, all of which can be mined using other techniques.
Now, are people thinking about this when they come to you and they say, oh, I just have my DNA done and I found this?
You know, most people want to go beyond that pie chart. They're looking for others that share genetic markers because they're looking for common ancestry.
Oh,
so
they are?
it's way beyond the pie chart.
See, I think that's why I think we always should be cautious when sharing our own information. But I think, just like you said, Josh, the merger of the digitized paper records plus the DNA is a very, very powerful tool for, I guess in some ways, we talked about this earlier, the fact we're a lot more interconnected than we think we are in this world.
Yes.
But also in terms of finding out who you are and what your future may be, I think it's a lot more powerful, a lot more reliable than going to Tara, the teacup reader.
Wait, let me
down
turn
the
those
street.
cards
Yeah,
over
right,
for you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No, and it's true, and I think it's a whole different world than going to a tarot reader or something. At the same time, I'm a little skeptical about giving my DNA. For me, I feel like it's giving out your social security number.
Yeah. There's not much to see. The question is, and I think the point you're making, the point that I'm making is the same, which is that data is very valuable information, but it's the analysis of all the data together that makes it valuable. For the regular or the more sophisticated hackers, it's the social security information. It could be mortgage records. It could be that kind of stuff. The DNA itself is not going to be valuable
Now.
But I don't know in the future. You know,
that's what I'm thinking.
do I want to look more like George Clooney? You know, and I want to steal his DNA? That's not going to happen.
No, I think you look lovely,
Thank you.
just the way you
Thank
are.
you. See, I paid her to say that, ladies and gentlemen.
I do want to know, though, what protections are in place for us.
So I think, as Rod alluded to, first in terms of no one can take your DNA and then use it to discriminate against you for a job, for health care, or for any other thing. There are state protections and federal protections. These are all criminal prosecutable actions. Secondly, there's a high level of encryption, I think that he can probably speak to, where even the most sophisticated hackers, if they're going to use your information, they're pretty much just going to get maybe a little bit, but not. It's like getting a lottery ticket and only scraping off the one number, not the whole number. And I think the third thing, the other protection, is the fact that there are many other organizations there that are pretty good stewards of these records.
Have you ever given your DNA test?
Yes.
Have you ever given your DNA?
Absolutely.
So I'm the only one here that's skeptical about this, and you guys don't have any qualms about this at all.
No, again, I think the benefits. There's always going to be risks to sharing information.
Right.
My concern is a bigger one, which is, as this becomes as people begin to monetize this information, I think there's an obligation to inform consumers about what else the data may be used for in the future.
And actually get paid for them
Absolutely.
using your data. Now, you were talking earlier about encryption. Are you comfortable that these kinds of things are encrypted and you haven't given out more information than you wanted to?
No, I'm not concerned. Obviously, there will always be people who will try to hack and get around it, and we see this. But generally speaking, these standards are in place, and for the most part, they are followed. And if you're not a worrier, then that obviously helps you feel more comfortable about.
Well, then, DNA aside, what was the best thing that you found through your research?
I got an opportunity to meet family who I knew, but there was family that I didn't know. And when I went over to Norway, I had connected to a guy who had a tree that had a lot of my family on it, and
Wow.
it turned out we were related. And I had told him I was coming, and I wanted to see him.
Did you like him?
Yeah. Oh,
Good.
he's like
You're
an
lucky.
American version, a Norwegian version of me. We had so many similar interests.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
this is like
And we
the
ran into
happy
each
ending
other.
I was hoping
Yes.
for this show. Well,
Yeah.
gentlemen, thank you so much for sharing
Thank
your
you.
stories and your information and your expertise with us. We really appreciate it. And for those of you at home, thank you so much for joining us. For more information about what you've seen on today's show, visit Store Brand USA, the channel here on YouTube, or go to storebrandsusa.com for information, shopping, recipe ideas, and more. I'm Jody Daly, and I'll see you next time for another edition of Let's Talk, when I'll find my roots.